These men were chosen to spread Jesus' message and played crucial roles in the foundation of Christianity. However, their lives would end in tragic and heroic ways. This video explores the final moments of the apostles, highlighting the impact of their sacrifices and the strength of the faith that sustained them until the end. Peter, originally named Simon, was a fisherman from Galilee, specifically from Bethsaida, and brother of Andrew. He was renamed Peter by Jesus, which means rock, symbolizing the unshakable faith he was to possess and the leadership role he would undertake. Peter is often depicted in the Gospels as impulsive and passionate, a man who, despite his flaws, had a deep and sincere love for Jesus. He was the first to declare that Jesus was the Christ, the Son of the living God. And for that faith, Jesus promised him the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Peter was present at many of the most significant moments of Jesus' ministry, including the Transfiguration and the Garden of Gethsemane. He is also known for denying Jesus 3 times before the rooster crowed, as Jesus predicted, an event that brought Peter great remorse and sorrow. After Jesus' resurrection, Peter emerged as one of the primary leaders of the early church. He boldly preached the gospel in Jerusalem and other regions, facing persecution and imprisonment. According to Christian tradition, Peter eventually traveled to Rome, where he continued preaching and strengthening the Christian community. Peter's tragic end came when he was condemned to death during the persecution of Christians by Emperor Nero, around 64 AD. Feeling unworthy to die in the same manner as his Lord, Peter asked to be crucified upside down. His request was granted, and he was crucified in that manner, marking one of the most powerful testimonies of faith and humility in Christian history. The scene of his crucifixion can be imagined with dramatic intensity. An inverted cross, Peter's face towards the ground, a serene and resigned expression on his countenance as he murmurs his final prayers. In the background, the city of Rome, symbolizing the empire that condemned him, remains indifferent to the sacrifice of one of the greatest apostles. Andrew, Peter's brother, was also a fisherman and lived in the city of Bethsaida in Galilee. He is often remembered as the first disciple of Jesus, initially being a follower of John the Baptist. It was Andrew who, after hearing John the Baptist declare that Jesus was the Lamb of God, decided to follow Jesus, and later brought his brother Peter to meet the Messiah. Andrew's story in the Gospels is marked by his humble nature and his role as an intermediary, always willing to introduce others to Jesus. Andrew is mentioned several times in the Gospels, such as in the feeding of the 5,000, where he identified the boy with the 5 loaves and 2 fish. He was also present on the Mount of Olives, where Jesus spoke about the signs of the end times. Christian tradition holds that after Jesus' resurrection, Andrew traveled extensively to preach the gospel in various regions, including Asia Minor and Greece. Andrew's tragic end is recounted with a profound sense of sacrifice and courage. According to tradition, Andrew was martyred in the city of Patras in Greece. There he continued preaching the gospel despite strong opposition from local authorities. His fervent testimony and the conversion of many to Christianity angered the Roman governor Aegeus. Andrew was arrested, and as punishment for his faith was condemned to death by crucifixion. However, instead of being crucified on a traditional cross, Andrew was tied to an X-shaped cross, later known as the Cross of St. Andrew. He asked not to be nailed to the cross but tied, prolonging his suffering and giving him more time to preach to those passing by. The scene of his crucifixion can be portrayed in a moving and impactful manner. Andrew tied to the X-shaped cross, with an expression of peace and determination on his face. Despite the pain, he continues speaking about Jesus, drawing the attention and respect of the spectators. His last words are a testament to his unwavering faith and devotion to his Lord. Andrew remained alive for 2 days on the cross, during which he continued exhorting people to follow Jesus. His courage and determination in the face of death inspired many to convert to Christianity. Eventually, he succumbed to his wounds, but his legacy of faith and evangelism continued to impact generations of Christians. James, known as James the Greater to differentiate him from another apostle named James the Lesser, was the son of Zebedee and brother of John the Evangelist. He was part of Jesus' inner circle along with Peter and John, witnessing significant events such as the Transfiguration and Jesus' agony in the Garden of Gethsemane. James and John were nicknamed Sons of Thunder by Jesus, possibly due to their impetuous and zealous nature. James is described in the Gospels as a fisherman who left everything to follow Jesus, demonstrating impressive faith and dedication. After Jesus' ascension, James became a prominent leader in the early church in Jerusalem. He preached fervently, converting many to Christianity. His courage and eloquence, however, drew the attention of the Jewish authorities, who saw the growing Christian movement as a threat. The end of James the Greater's life is narrated in the book of Acts, Acts 12:1-2, where it is told that he was beheaded by order of King Herod Agrippa I. This event occurred around 44 AD, and James was the first of the apostles to suffer martyrdom. His execution was an act of political and religious repression, aimed at stopping the spread of Christianity. The scene of his capture and execution can be portrayed with great drama. James, in the midst of his preachings, is suddenly seized by Herod's soldiers. Even in the face of imminent death, he maintains a serene and resolute posture, strengthened by his faith. On the way to his execution, he continues to testify about Jesus, consoling and encouraging his followers to remain steadfast in the faith. At the moment of execution, James is taken outside the city, and before a crowd of spectators, he is beheaded. The brutality of the act contrasts with the dignity and peace of James, whose last vision is of heaven as he murmurs a prayer of surrender to God. His martyrdom not only deeply marked the early Christian community, but also inspired many to continue the work he began, spreading the gospel with renewed determination. The death of James the Greater serves as a powerful testimony to the cost of discipleship and the strength of faith in the face of persecution. His life and death exemplify the courage and devotion of Jesus' early followers, whose actions and sacrifices shaped the foundation of Christianity and left a lasting legacy. John, also known as John the Evangelist, was the brother of James the Greater and son of Zebedee. Together, he and James were called sons of thunder by Jesus, possibly due to their zeal and ardor. John is a central figure in the New Testament, frequently mentioned in the Gospels as one of Jesus' closest apostles. He witnessed many of the most intimate and significant moments of Jesus' ministry, including the Transfiguration, the Last Supper, and the crucifixion. In fact, John is often identified as the beloved disciple who remained at the foot of the cross during Jesus' crucifixion, receiving from Jesus the responsibility to care for Mary, Jesus' mother. After Jesus' resurrection, John became one of the pillars of the early church in Jerusalem. His life and ministry were marked by deep spirituality and unwavering commitment to the truth of the gospel. John is traditionally attributed as the author of the fourth gospel, 3 epistles, and the book of Revelation, all fundamental documents in Christian theology. John's fate differs significantly from that of the other apostles. While many were martyred, John, according to tradition, lived to an old age, dying of natural causes. However, his life was not without difficulties and persecutions. During the reign of Emperor Domitian, John was exiled to the island of Patmos, a small Greek island in the Aegean Sea, due to his testimony of Jesus. It was during that exile that he received the visions that make up the book of Revelation, a work filled with symbols and prophecies about the end times. The scene of John on the island of Patmos can be portrayed with great spiritual intensity. John, an elderly man alone amidst the rocks and stormy sea, receives divine visions. In his isolation, he continues to meditate on Jesus' words and write to the churches, encouraging and exhorting Christians to remain firm in their faith. The vision of Revelation, with its vivid images of cosmic battles and the final victory of good over evil, reflects John's unshakable hope in redemption and divine justice. After his exile on Patmos, John returned to Ephesus, where he continued to serve and lead the Christian community until his death, presumably around 100 AD. His longevity allowed him to be a living bridge between the first generation of Christians and subsequent generations, preserving and transmitting the memories and teachings of Jesus. John's life is a testament to the strength of faith and perseverance. He faced persecutions, exile, and loneliness, but remained steadfast in his commitment to Christ. His literary and spiritual legacy continues to inspire and guide Christians around the world, demonstrating that the love and truth of the gospel transcend all difficulties and tribulations. Philip, originally from Bethsaida in Galilee, was one of Jesus' first disciples, mentioned in the Gospels as someone who promptly responded to the call to follow the Messiah. He is known for having a missionary heart, demonstrated when he brought Nathanael, also known as Bartholomew, to Jesus, declaring with conviction, "We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." John 1:45. Philip appears at various key moments in the Gospels, including the feeding of the 5,000, where he expresses concern about how to feed the crowd, showing his practical and immediate concern for people's needs. After Jesus' ascension, Philip continued to play a significant role in the expansion of the early church. He is mentioned in the book of Acts as a fervent evangelist. Philip went to the city of Samaria, where he preached the gospel with great success, performing miracles and baptizing many new believers. One of the most notable episodes of his missionary life was his encounter with the Ethiopian eunuch, a high official of the Queen of Ethiopia, Candace. Guided by the Holy Spirit, Philip explained the scriptures to the eunuch and baptized him, demonstrating the inclusiveness of the gospel and the reach of the Christian message beyond ethnic and cultural boundaries. Philip's end is traditionally placed in Hierapolis in Phrygia, modern-day Turkey, where he continued to preach tirelessly. According to Christian tradition, Philip was martyred under Roman rule. He was arrested and condemned to death by crucifixion. However, in an additional act of cruelty, he was tied to the cross by his ankles, hanging upside down. Even in his final moments, Philip continued preaching to those around him. His indomitable spirit and unshakable faith shone through to the end. The scene of his martyrdom can be portrayed with deep emotional intensity. Philip, hanging upside down, continues to speak about Jesus, his eyes filled with compassion and hope, even as his life fades away. The crowd around him, initially hostile, begins to be touched by his courage and his testimony of love and forgiveness. Philip's death was not in vain. His legacy endured through generations of Christians who followed his example of faith and courage. His life and death are powerful testimonies of absolute dedication to the gospel and the willingness to face any adversity for the love of Christ. Philip is remembered not only as an apostle and evangelist, but also as an example of unwavering commitment and selfless service. His story inspires many to follow God's call, regardless of challenges and persecutions, trusting that the power of the gospel transcends all barriers. Bartholomew, also identified as Nathanael in the Gospels, was one of Jesus' 12 apostles. He is first mentioned in the Gospel of John when Philip introduces him to Jesus. Nathanael is known for his integrity and frankness. When Philip told him that he had found the Messiah, Nathanael questioned, "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" John 1:46. However, upon meeting Jesus, he quickly recognized his divinity when Jesus revealed knowledge of his intimate life, saying, "Here truly is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." John 1:47. Impressed by Jesus' insight, Nathanael declared, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God, you are the King of Israel." John 1:49. Bartholomew is mentioned in the lists of apostles in the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and in the Acts of the Apostles. After Jesus' ascension, Christian tradition indicates that Bartholomew preached the gospel in various regions, including India, Mesopotamia, Persia, Egypt, and Armenia. He is particularly venerated in Armenia, where he is believed to have been instrumental in the foundation of the Armenian Church, along with another apostle, Jude Thaddeus. The end of Bartholomew's life is one of the most harrowing and inspiring stories among the apostles. According to tradition, Bartholomew was captured by local rulers in Armenia due to his success in converting people to Christianity. He was subjected to brutal tortures. The most widely accepted tradition says that he was flayed alive and subsequently beheaded. This form of martyrdom highlights the intensity of the persecution he faced and the profound faith he maintained until the end. The scene of his martyrdom can be portrayed with great emotional intensity. Bartholomew, surrounded by his torturers, faces his death with surprising serenity. His unshakable faith and dignity in the midst of pain leave even his executioners impressed. Even during his extreme tortures, Bartholomew continues praying, invoking God's mercy and salvation for his persecutors. Bartholomew's courage in facing such a painful death and his unwavering dedication to the gospel made him a revered martyr. His life and death are powerful testimonies to the depth of Christian commitment and the strength of faith in the face of adversity. Bartholomew is remembered as a model of integrity and courage, whose actions have inspired countless Christians over the centuries. In Christian art, Bartholomew is often depicted holding his own skin or a knife, symbols of his martyrdom. His story continues to be a solemn reminder of the cost of discipleship and the transformative power of the gospel. Matthew, also known as Levi, was a tax collector before becoming one of Jesus' 12 apostles. He is frequently remembered for his role as the author of the Gospel of Matthew, one of the 4 canonical Gospels of the New Testament. As a tax collector, Matthew worked for the Romans and was generally despised by the Jews, who saw tax collectors as traitors and sinners. However, when Jesus called him to follow, Matthew immediately left his lucrative position to become a disciple, showing extraordinary faith and commitment. Matthew's conversion is one of the most significant episodes in the New Testament, illustrating Jesus' message of redemption and forgiveness. On one occasion, Jesus went to a banquet at Matthew's house, where many tax collectors and sinners were present. When the Pharisees criticized Jesus for associating with these people, he responded, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners." Matthew 9:12-13. After Jesus' ascension, Matthew dedicated his life to preaching the gospel. According to tradition, he evangelized in various regions, including Palestine, Ethiopia, and possibly Parthia and Persia. The Gospel of Matthew, which he wrote, is particularly aimed at a Jewish audience, emphasizing how Jesus fulfilled Old Testament prophecies about the Messiah. The tragic end of Matthew, like that of many other apostles, was marked by violence and persecution. Christian tradition recounts that Matthew was martyred in Ethiopia while preaching the gospel. There are various versions of how he died, but the most common is that he was killed by the sword, possibly beheaded, by order of a local king, angered by the conversion of many of his subjects to Christianity. The scene of his martyrdom can be portrayed with dramatic and emotional intensity. Matthew, cornered and with no escape, stands firm in his faith. Confronted by soldiers armed with swords, his expression is one of peace and determination. Even in the face of imminent death, he continues preaching, his last words a testament to Jesus' love and forgiveness. Matthew died as he lived, dedicated to the mission of spreading the gospel, even under the threat of death. His life and death are powerful testimonies to the transformation that faith in Christ can bring, and the courage needed to maintain that faith in the face of persecution. Matthew's memory is honored in Christian art and liturgy. He is often depicted with an angel or a winged man, symbolizing his gospel, which begins with the human genealogy of Jesus. His story continues to inspire many Christians to respond to Jesus' call and live lives of service and sacrifice. Thomas, also known as Didymus, is a fascinating figure among the apostles due to his struggle with doubt and his eventual firmness in faith. He is best known for the post-resurrection episode where he expressed skepticism about Jesus' resurrection. When the other apostles told Thomas that they had seen the risen Lord, he replied, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." John 20:25. Because of this statement, he became known as Doubting Thomas. However, this doubt transformed into a powerful confession of faith. 8 days later, Jesus appeared again to the apostles, this time with Thomas present. Jesus invited Thomas to touch his wounds and said, "Stop doubting and believe." John 20:27. Confronted with the reality of the resurrection, Thomas exclaimed, "My Lord and my God." John 20:28. One of the strongest declarations of faith in the New Testament. This event transformed Thomas from a skeptic into a fervent believer, and he became a passionate evangelist. After Jesus' ascension, Christian tradition relates that Thomas traveled to preach the gospel in distant places, including Parthia, Persia, and especially India. He is particularly venerated in the Syrian Malabar Church and the Malabar Catholic Church, based in the state of Kerala in southern India. According to tradition, Thomas arrived in India in 52 AD and began preaching Christianity among the Jewish and local communities. He founded several churches and converted many to Christianity, establishing a Christian community that persists to this day. Thomas's end, like that of many other apostles, was marked by martyrdom. The most widely accepted tradition is that he was martyred in Mylapore, near Chennai, India. It is said that he was killed by spears, enraged by the success of his preaching and conversions. In one version of the story, Thomas was praying in a cave when he was attacked and pierced with spears, succumbing to his wounds. The scene of his martyrdom can be portrayed with dramatic intensity. Thomas, kneeling in prayer, with an expression of serenity and resignation, is surrounded by his killers. Even as the spears strike him, he maintains his unshakable faith, perhaps murmuring a prayer for his attackers and asking God to forgive their sins. His death is a final testimony to his transformation from skeptic to fervent believer, willing to die for his Lord. The life and death of Thomas are a powerful illustration of the journey of faith, from doubt to absolute certainty. His story resonates with many who face doubts and questions in their own faith, offering hope that the sincere search for truth and understanding can lead to deeper and lasting faith. Thomas is remembered as a fearless evangelist whose bravery and dedication helped establish Christianity in distant lands and left a lasting legacy. In Christian iconography, Thomas is frequently depicted holding a spear or kneeling before Jesus, touching his wounds. He is a symbol of honesty in doubt and depth in faith, inspiring believers to seek a deeper and more authentic understanding of their faith. James the Less, also known as James, son of Alphaeus, is one of the apostles less mentioned in the Gospels, but his importance in the early church is significant. He is identified as the Less, to differentiate him from James the Greater, son of Zebedee. James the Less is frequently confused with James the Just, who was the leader of the church in Jerusalem and one of the principal defenders of the Christian faith. However, many scholars and church traditions believe that these two Jameses are the same person, making his story even richer. James the Less is mentioned in the lists of apostles in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. He is also referenced in the Acts of the Apostles, especially in the context of the early church in Jerusalem. James is known for his deep piety and for his leadership in the Jewish Christian community. He played a crucial role in the Council of Jerusalem, where it was decided that Gentile converts to Christianity did not need to follow all the Mosaic laws, a decision that helped shape the expansion of Christianity beyond Jewish boundaries. According to tradition, James the Less had a deep commitment to prayer and holiness. He was known for his justice and devotion, frequently called James the Just. Eusebius, an early church historian, relates that James spent so much time in prayer on his knees that his knees became as hard as those of a camel. His leadership and pious character earned him respect from both Christians and Jews in Jerusalem. The tragic end of James the Less is recounted with reverence and solemnity. According to various historical sources, including the Jewish historian Flavius Josephus and Eusebius, James was martyred for his faith in Jesus Christ. Around 62 AD, during a period of political instability in Jerusalem, the high priest Ananias took advantage of the absence of the Roman governor to accuse James of violating Jewish law. He was taken to the top of the temple and forced to publicly declare his faith. When he refused to renounce Jesus as the Messiah, he was thrown from the pinnacle of the temple. Miraculously, the fall did not kill him. He tried to get up and continue praying for his enemies, but he was stoned by the furious religious leaders, and finally, a laundryman broke his skull with a club. His death was an act of brutality that deeply marked the Christian community in Jerusalem. The scene of his martyrdom can be portrayed with dramatic intensity. James, fallen and bloody, still finding strength to pray, is surrounded by a furious crowd. His expression is one of peace and resignation, reflecting his love and forgiveness to the end. The crowd is silenced by the strength of his faith, and even in the midst of violence, the presence of God is palpable. James the Less is remembered as a model of justice, piety, and unshakable faith. His life and death are testimonies to the power of prayer and holiness, inspiring Christians to seek a life of deep devotion and commitment to the teachings of Jesus. He is frequently depicted with a club, symbolizing the instrument of his martyrdom, and is venerated as a saint and martyr whose intercession continues to be sought by those facing persecution for their faith. Jude Thaddeus, also known as Thaddeus or Lebbaeus, was one of Jesus' 12 apostles. He is mentioned in the lists of apostles in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and in the Acts of the Apostles. To differentiate him from Judas Iscariot, the traitor, he is often called Thaddeus. This apostle is known for his ardent dedication to Jesus and his missionary zeal. Jude Thaddeus is mentioned in the Gospel of John during the Last Supper, where he asked a significant question to Jesus. "Lord, why do you intend to show yourself to us and not to the world?" John 14:22. This question reveals his desire to understand Jesus' revelation and his role in the divine mission. Jesus responded to Thaddeus by emphasizing love and obedience as keys to the true manifestation of God. After Jesus' ascension, Jude Thaddeus played a crucial role in evangelization. According to Christian tradition, he preached the gospel in various regions, including Mesopotamia, Persia, and Armenia. His preaching was characterized by fervent zeal and a deep love for souls, converting many to Christianity and establishing Christian communities in places where the message of Jesus had not yet reached. The tragic end of Jude Thaddeus, like many of the other apostles, is marked by persecution and martyrdom. According to tradition, he suffered a brutal death in Persia, modern-day Iran, because of his faith and his success in converting many to Christianity. He was captured by local authorities, who were enraged by the growing Christian influence in the region. Jude Thaddeus was martyred in a particularly cruel way. He was killed by blows from a club or an axe, reflecting the brutality of those who opposed the Christian message. Even in the face of imminent death, Thaddeus remained firm in his faith, showing courage and determination to the end. The scene of his martyrdom can be portrayed with dramatic intensity. Thaddeus, surrounded by his executioners, maintains an expression of peace and resignation, his faith unshakable to the last moment. He prays for his enemies, asking God to forgive them, and his courage leaves a lasting impression even among those who killed him. Jude Thaddeus is remembered as a model of apostolic zeal and faithfulness. His life and death are powerful testimonies to the cost of discipleship and the strength of faith. He is venerated as a saint in both the Catholic and Orthodox churches, and is often invoked as the patron saint of lost and desperate causes, due to his ability to bring hope and conversion in seemingly impossible situations. In Christian iconography, Jude Thaddeus is often depicted holding a club or axe, symbolizing his martyrdom, and an image of Jesus in a medallion, reflecting his question during the Last Supper. His story continues to inspire Christians to follow Jesus' call with courage and dedication, trusting in the transformative power of the gospel. Simon, also known as Simon the Zealot, was one of Jesus' 12 apostles. The title Zealot suggests that he might have been part of the Zealot movement, a Jewish group that advocated rebellion against Roman rule. The Zealots were known for their religious fervor and their willingness to use force to achieve freedom and justice. Simon's transformation from a dedicated zealot to a peaceful follower of Jesus is a powerful testimony to the impact of the gospel. Simon is mentioned in the lists of apostles in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and in the Acts of the Apostles. Although there are not many details about his specific actions in the Gospels, his inclusion among the 12 highlights his importance in Jesus' inner circle. Simon's life before meeting Jesus was probably marked by nationalist fervor and the desire to see Israel free from Roman rule. However, by following Jesus, Simon found a new vision of freedom and justice, centered on love and forgiveness. After Jesus' ascension, Simon the Zealot dedicated himself to the mission of spreading the gospel. According to tradition, he preached in various regions, including the Middle East, Africa, and possibly Britain. His mission was marked by a burning desire to convert souls and establish Christian communities. He traveled extensively, facing countless difficulties and dangers while proclaiming Christ's message. The tragic end of Simon, like that of many other apostles, was martyrdom. According to tradition, Simon was martyred for his faith and his success in converting many to Christianity. One version of the tradition says he was crucified, while another claims he was sawn in half. However, one of the most common traditions is that he was crucified in Persia alongside the apostle Jude Thaddeus, with whom he had traveled to preach. The scene of his martyrdom can be portrayed with great emotional intensity. Simon, exhausted but resolute, faces his execution with impressive serenity. Even in the face of death, he continues to preach Jesus' message of love and forgiveness. The crowd watching is touched by his courage and unshakable faith, and his last words are a prayer of surrender to God. Simon the Zealot is remembered as an example of transformation and dedication. His life and death are testimonies to the gospel's ability to transform even the most fervent and militant hearts into peaceful and devoted followers of Christ. He is venerated as a saint in both the Catholic and Orthodox churches, and his story continues to inspire Christians to seek true freedom and justice through faith in Jesus. In Christian iconography, Simon is often depicted with a saw, symbolizing his martyrdom, or with a cross, reflecting his crucifixion. His story is a powerful reminder of the cost of discipleship and the call to follow Christ with courage and conviction, regardless of the circumstances. Through this, we learn that the journey of the 12 apostles reveals unwavering courage and faith in the face of persecution. Their lives and martyrdoms are powerful testimonies to the impact of the gospel, inspiring generations to follow Jesus with devotion. Their stories continue to shape and strengthen the Christian faith worldwide. May we have the strength of the Holy Spirit that dwelled in them. Amen.